Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches!
A real
revolutionary right now. Black power.
Support this man, Black media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Today is Friday, August 25th, 2023. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network in Atlanta. A family mourns the loss of their beloved patriarch, Deacon Johnny Hollman Sr., who tragically died while in police custody under strange circumstances. We'll talk with the Hollman family attorney to find out what is going on. Also, that mugshot seen around the world of Donald Trump, the first former occupant of the Oval Office to ever get a mugshot. He also is already raising money off of this opportunity. Told you he's a grifter. Today marked the deadline for all of Trump's co-defendants in the Georgia RICO case to surrender to authorities. We'll show you the remaining individuals, Black woman Trevion Kuto, Kanye West's former publicist, as well as an Illinois clergyman. We'll show you all 19 mugshots. Also, while the leader of Blacks for Trump, Harrison Floyd, continues to sit in jail, it could have something to do with avoiding federal prison in Maryland. In a major legal battle, a Tulsa court has rescinded the permission of a Tulsa victim ancestor to reopen the estate claim to preserve the legacy and property rights. We'll talk with a civil rights attorney to shed light on this wrongful intervention that prevented the reopening and the broader implications for justice as well. Also, this weekend, festivities are happening in D.C. to mark the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. At this hour, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated is holding an event at the MLK Memorial. I'll share with you a word from the last four or five Alpha presidents, plus Rainbow Push Coalition CEO Freddie Haynes and Mark Morrell, CEO of the National Urban League. Folks, it is time to bring the funk. I'm Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing, putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin.
As a Georgia family says their final goodbyes to their patriarch, they are still wondering how 62-year-old Deacon Johnny Hollman Sr. ended up dead while in police custody. August 10th, Hollman was involved in a minor traffic accident. It's unclear why things escalated when Atlanta police arrived on the scene. Body camera footage has yet to be released in the case, but when the family arrived there, they saw their father lying motionless on the ground with paramedics performing CPR after he was tased by a police officer. The video here was actually shot by family members. The unnamed officer is on leave as the Georgia Bureau of Investigation investigates this case. Joining me from Atlanta is Mauli Mel Davis. He's representing the Hollman family. Glad to have you here, Mr. Davis. So, again, this is what just jumps out the most on this case, and whenever we do these stories, another example of a minor traffic accident leading to a black person dead.
Correct. In fact, Deacon, he was the chairman of the Deacon board, he called the police. And so he calls the police. he's perfectly safe up until the police arrive. When they arrive, that's when his life is in danger. That's when they begin to escalate the situation, and this officer tases him, handcuffs him, and ultimately he dies. And his family has to come up, and they see them performing the CPR. We just left from the service. Tomorrow they will have the funeral, but we just left from the viewing, and his son, who I was standing with, who shares his name, Johnny Hollman Sr., was just like, they didn't have to do this to my dad.
Okay, I'm still trying to understand. Okay, so was it a traffic accident?
It was an accident.
Okay, involving another vehicle?
Involving another vehicle.
And so Mr. Hollman, he's the one who calls the cops.
Exactly. Both drivers called the police. And so we've been in communication with the other driver and hope to be able to do a full interview with him early next week. But there's nothing that he indicated as to why Mr. Hollman was even being arrested. You know, this officer decides, this 62-year-old deacon who has just left Bible study after a minor traffic accident where he calls the police, needs to be arrested. That's where this begins to go wrong.
Okay, so this took place August 10th. Why haven't they released the body cam footage yet?
Roland, that's the question. We know across the country the policies and what we have seen as best practices is to at least bring the family and the attorneys in to view the body cam footage so that questions can be answered. So as they bury him on tomorrow, they're not wondering what happened that day. So we've asked the city of Atlanta. There was a march and protest this past Thursday here in Atlanta. Folks are demanding it. And so we hope that this, is addressed early next week. If not, all we can do is encourage people to stay in the street, to keep fighting, keep demanding, because the power really lies with the people. And that's unfortunate that we're the cradle of the civil rights movement, yet we behave in this way when one of our own citizens is killed by an Atlanta police officer.
Absolutely strange what has happened here. We appreciate you coming on. Surely give our thoughts and prayers to the Hollman family.
We really appreciate you and what you've done all over the years, and thank you for supporting this kind of work.
I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Folks, Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens released this statement regarding this case. Quote, "Every single life in Atlanta is important and matters to me. Every single death in this city weighs on my heart." What started as a routine stop after an accident ended in the death of 62-year-old Johnny Hollman. Immediately following these events, I directed Chief Darren Shearbaum to conduct a top-to-bottom evaluation of the interaction with Mr. Hollman, including a review of the department's standard operating procedures and training curriculum. APD leadership will ensure that the officer involved will receive due process. In the coming days, we will share the results of those findings and updates to the standard operating procedures of APD. I have been in touch with the family of Mr. Hollman to express my condolences, and the city has provided assistance to them. My prayers remain with the family and loved ones of Mr. Hollman and with the entire city of Atlanta. Folks, our panel right now is Michael Imhotep, host of the African History Network show, joining me out of Detroit. Glad to have you here. Killa Bethea, communications strategist, joining me out of D.C. Civil rights attorney Matt Manning, out of Corpus Christi. Glad to have all three of you here. I mean, it's like deja vu, Matt. Traffic accident, black man dead. I swear. My goodness. And again, in this case, the two people who were involved, they called the cops. I mean, my good. If you're black, hell, calling the cops could get you dead.
Yeah, it could. And, as much as I like the mayor addressing this issue and calling for a top-to-bottom investigation, it may not have any material effect, because what it really comes down to is this family's ability to vindicate the loss of Mr. Hollman in court. And the 11th Circuit, just like the 5th Circuit where I practice, is one of the most difficult circuits to practice in the United States in terms of the judges' positions on things and the overall conservative nature of the court. And what that means is that the problem really is less APD's individual policies and more looking at what officers do out in the field and giving them basically an objective, viewpoint to determine whether what they did was reasonable. And what concerns me about this case is it's indefensible, right? It doesn't make any sense at all that somebody would have a traffic accident and end up dead and that a taser is used with the routine response to a traffic accident. But the problem with that is no matter how divorced from logic that seems, it routinely happens where courts tell people that it's either not excessive force or it's not enough to prove the case. And what I am concerned about in this case is that they will want to extend qualified immunity. So for this to have a measurable effect, for this case to really come out the way it should from a moral standpoint, we need to have Congress, have the actual gumption to pass a law that does not shield officers on the state and or federal level with qualified immunity the way that they have. And in this instance, it would really be the Georgia legislature, just like the state of Colorado did. Until that happens, it doesn't matter how much the city looks at its policies and procedures, because it'll be very difficult to hold them accountable. And that's my concern in this case and all cases like it.
And again, right here, Kelly, another black person dead, 62-year-old deacon.
Yeah, it's absolutely heartbreaking. My mom is just a year older than this man, and if that were to ever happen to her, I don't even want to think about it, because it is that jarring and that triggering. The fact that, once again, like you said, we have this issue is just a testament as to how things have not changed, and the fear that things will not change, no matter how much criminal reform we have, no matter how many protests we have, no matter how many black bodies are strewn out on the street by way of, capital violence against citizens. It does, like, the needle just simply isn't moving to the extent at the frequency in which lives will be saved. And that is extremely concerning to me.
Indeed. Michael?
Yeah, Roland, I watched the video. AtlantaNewsFirst.com covered this story. And one of the questions that I had for the attorney is, where's the body camera footage? Where's the dash camera footage? I know he addressed that, but because it has not been released, it leads me to believe that it has incriminating evidence on the dash cam video or the body camera video that's damaging to the police officer who it appears repeatedly tased. It looks like he was tased more than once, Johnny Hollman, 62 years old. Also, apparently he had asthma as well. And what I was trying to find out is, okay, so how did it escalate from a minor traffic accident and he calling the police to him being tased? I know he was possibly agitated or something like that, but if you're an officer arriving on the scene of an accident, you have to use some discernment, some judgment when you deal with somebody who's an elder and they're probably upset because an accident happened. So you have to use restraint. So I'm still trying to figure out, how did it escalate to him being tased?
The family trying to do the exact same thing. And so hopefully we'll get the body cam footage quite soon. All right, folks, got to go to break. We come back. All 19 defendants in the Donald Trump RICO case have turned themselves in. We have the mugshots, the two who turned themselves in today. One of them still in jail. What's up with his bond hearing? We'll break it all down next right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, have you ever had that $1 million idea and wondered how you could make it a reality? On the next Get Wealthy, you're going to meet Liska Askalise, the inventress, someone who made her own idea a reality and now is showing others how they can do it too.
Positive, focusing in on the thing that you want to do, writing it down, and not speaking to naysayers or anybody about your product until you've taken some steps to at least execute.
Leska Ask Elise on the next Get Wealthy, right here, only on Black Star Network.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm Devon Frank.
I'm Dr. Robin B., pharmacist and fitness coach, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
The thugs in the RICO case in Georgia turned themselves in. No, I'm not talking about the Young Thug case. I'm talking about Donald Trump and his imps. Here are the two mugshots of the folks who turned themselves in today. Trevion Kuto, of course, the black woman, former publicist for Kanye West, and for R. Kelly, turned herself in. Boy, that's one evil-ass looking photo right there. Violation of the Georgia Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organization Act, conspiracy to commit solicitation of false statements and writings influencing witnesses as well. All right, let's show the man who showed up in his clerical collar. He was the priest involved. We got that photo? All right, come on, let's show it. He is from Illinois. He was not at all happy about turning himself in. Stephen Lee, same thing. He was involved in this. They were the last two turning themselves in. Here are the 19 mugshots of all of the gang, the Trump gang. Well, that's Donald Trump's mugshot. Literally thinking he's supposed to look tough. No, fool, you look ridiculous. Kenneth Chesbro, that's his photo. Keep going. Mark Meadows, he tried to get out of it. Mike Roman, let's see here. Misty Hampton. Ray Smith, yep, pretty evil. Robert Cheeley, yep, former head of the Republican Party in Georgia. Rudy Giuliani, Scott Hall. Let's see here, keep going. Sean Steele. That's right. Sidney Powell, that idiot, about to jack her law license. Of course, there's Stephen Lee again. Trevion Cootie, let's go. Keep going. Kathy Latham, she needs some sun. Man, she's pale as hell. David Schaefer needs some sun, too. Jeffrey Clark, yeah, he looks confused. Jenna Ellis, she actually posted something on Twitter. I absolutely hollered at laughing. John Eastman, that lion SOB. He's there. And this idiot, Harrison Floyd, who was the former head of Black Voices for Trump, okay, one of two black defendants. He's the only one who is still in jail. Of course, he was director of Black Voices for Trump during the 2020 election campaign. He was indicted for violating Georgia's anti-racketeering law, illegally influencing witnesses, and conspiring to solicit a false statement. According to the indictment, he repeatedly harassed and attempted to pressure a black election worker, Ruby Freeman, to make a false statement. Now, it's not completely clear why Floyd did not negotiate a bond agreement. Could be he's broke as hell. His previous arrest could explain why he's still in jail. Floyd was arrested in May for assaulting a federal officer attempting to serve him with a grand jury subpoena. That's never a good thing, player. And so had a bond hearing happening there in Georgia. Now, of course, Donald Trump, Mr. Pomp and Circumstance, turned himself into Fulton County authorities yesterday during prime time. And of course, you know, they had the motorcade and all of this sort of stuff along those lines. I'm not sure why. I don't quite understand, Matt, what the hell that was about. I've seen former President Barack Obama when he has gone places. He didn't have like a 20 motorcycle. I mean, that was sort of like a motorcade for the existing president, not somebody who used to be in office. What did you make of that? Because again, for the Trump people, they love the pageantry of all of that. I'm not sure why it was required.
Well, I think it's kind of, excuse me, part and parcel with him litigating his case in the public sphere. I mean, what he's trying to do is poison the jury and trying to give credence to the idea that he's not the former president, but he is going to be president again and should get some kind of special treatment. Just the bravado with which he and all of these others are addressing this case is really kind of absurd to me, because generally people are considerably more afraid of federal charges and anything like this, like a RICO type charge, is a pretty scary charge. So for them to not have any concern, or at least any outward concern, I think it's to continue playing this part that he's the president, he's Teflon Don, he's untouchable, and he's going to beat these charges. I think that's why he had all of those cars in the motorcade. And as it relates to Floyd, you know, he's on no bond from what I read, which would explain why he did not make any agreements with Fannie Willis's office relating to bond and conditions before turning himself in. But that's pretty important, actually. It's one thing I always counsel clients on, is before you go turn yourself in, you want to have everything figured out, because it's much more difficult to get your bond situation figured out if you're already behind bars. But in terms of turning themselves in and the way they've approached this, I think it's all part of the show that they're trying to play. And, you know, in terms of poisoning the jury, and to go one step further, I think it's crazy that they're attacking the judges and prosecutors and all the people involved in these cases, because ultimately, you know, the case doesn't get litigated in the court of public opinion. It gets litigated in a courthouse. And that seems to me to be the worst way to plead your case, is by attacking those who are a part of the administration of the case.
I just don't understand, Michael. First of all, Atlanta police and Fulton County sheriffs, they didn't have to accede to that. They could have simply said, you don't deserve all of that. You don't, you're not the president anymore. And so guess what? You now had to stop at red lights. I mean, this to me, go to my iPad. I mean, I'm not quite understanding all of this. Matter of fact, let me just roll it back. I mean, this is the beginning of it. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 17, 18, 19. I mean, 19 motorcycle cops leading, and like, this is the whole, I don't get it. Again, to me, what that does is that, that's what he wants. He wants that whole the pageantry of this whole thing, Michael.
Yeah. Trump does want that, and Trump also wanted this to be broadcast at prime time, which is why he wanted to turn himself in during prime time to garner more media attention. So now so I don't know exactly why the authorities there gave him such the motorcade and so many officers on motorcycles, unless there were credible threats. Okay, which, that could be it. But at the end of the day, yesterday was a good day for the American rule of law. Yesterday was a good day for African Americans as well, because I've been going through reading the 98-page indictment, and we saw at the core of this was African Americans who were vilified, Ruby Freeman, Shay Moss, their lives were turned upside down. It was, African Americans looked at it as those who were cheating. They're trying to, Trump is trying to get 11,780 votes and invalidate the votes of African Americans. And it's so important for people. What's been missing from a lot of this analysis is the day before January 6, 2021 was the January 5th senatorial elections in Georgia, where not just John Ossoff won, but Reverend Raphael Warnock won again. He beat Kelly Loeffler. If you understand the history of Georgia's 1963 runoff election law, which is championed by a segregationist Democrat in the state legislature in Georgia named Denmark Groover, it was designed to prevent African Americans from having statewide political power in the first place. So Reverend Raphael Warnock defied the odds not once, but twice. So this helped to fuel a lot of this white supremacist anger once again. So no man or woman is above the law. The full weight of, Donald Trump thought white supremacy was his superpower, but he found out a black woman is his kryptonite. And this is what a lot of them are going to find out, including those two Negroes as well. So I hope the full weight of her department comes down and puts all of them in prison.
You know what, Kelly, as I sit here and I look at just, this whole deal, I mean, you already see Trump, he wanted this image right here on Fox News. This is what Fox News was showing. And so he wanted that. Now he's literally selling merchandise with his mugshot. One of the networks reported that him and his people were on the plane talking about the look, and he wanted to be a menacing look, and they were so everything was about the presentation. Remember, this is all this guy cares about. And now that this has happened, now the legal battle goes on, and this is now the moment where Fani Willis now has to then begin to apply the screws. That Kenneth Chesbro, he thought he was going to get away with a slip one by demanding a speedy trial, requesting November 4th. She was like, yeah, we're good, October 23rd. And so if that actually happens, we're talking about the first trial is October 23rd, and then only imagine what happens if that guy gets convicted. If you're the other people, we already see one of the former Mar-a-Lago worker in the document case already flipped, get a new attorney, and was like, my initial statements, they were not correct. That's what you're also looking to see happen here. If these people begin to look up and go, oh shit, I could actually go to prison.
I mean, if they haven't had that revelation yet, I don't know what's going on, because your mugshot is out there now. This is not for play. This is the real deal, and this is actually happening. We are not in a vortex. This is not AI. You really have been not convicted. Speaking it into existence, you have been charged with a RICO charge, and this is the real world, right? And it is not surprising to me that Trump did all that yesterday. If there's one thing he knows how to do well, it is to position himself, to exploit himself by way of media coverage, because he is still of the impression that all press is good press. And in his case, that more or less has been true for the past almost decade now of him being in our news cycle because of his blatantly, right now, allegedly illegal shenanigans. I am surprised, however, at how dusty he looked, the Mango Mussolini, in these mugshots. I heard that he was talking about how, he's looking up, how to look all menacing and all this stuff. I'm sorry. You've known for a full, couple weeks and some change that you were about to have this mugshot. I'm bringing the glam squad. I'm filling in that, bald spot.
You mean this glam squad?
Ew, why'd you do that?
Well, you said glam squad, so I mean,
that's not glam squad. Mm-mm.
Oh, I mean that's makeup.
Now but nevertheless, you are a mess. All that to say, people are woefully unprepared regarding this case. Everybody except the DA, Fani Willis. She was ready yesterday. She was literally waiting for them at the door. So I don't know what's going on with these defendants. But get your coins ready, because Trump's not about to pay you. He's not about to pay for you. Yeah, you got some stuff to do now. You got a month.
Oh, well, look, I'm telling you, Matt, go to my iPad. This group right here, somebody gonna flip, baby. I'm telling you right now, if Chesborough, let's say he's found guilty, the other 17 will be like, do I really want a chance 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years in prison for this fool?
Oh, yeah. Well, first off, let me stop first and say Mango Mussolini is by far the best name I've heard for Donald Trump. Thank you, Kelly. I could not control myself. That is hilarious. Thank you.
Oh, that was
all right.
you?
Moving on, Senior. Oh, I was dying. That was golden. But yeah, you're not wrong, Roland. And you know what's interesting about that, particularly something like a racketeering type case, that's exactly what you're going to see. You're going to see the dominoes start falling. You know, the bravado is fine now, right, when you're just in the news cycle. But when it gets down to it, especially if people who have the more difficult cases in this context, you know, get convicted, you're going to start seeing people drop like flies if they're not already, you know, and it just hasn't been reported yet, particularly if it's somebody like the lawyer or someone else who's not accused necessarily of doing an overt act, but is accused of being really intimately involved in the actual collusion or the conspiracy. If he or she, or in this instance, Chesborough, gets convicted, I think that really bodes not well for the rest of the people. And I think you'll see people starting to try to cut bait and get out of it as quickly as they can. Because like, if you look at his charges, all 4 of them are conspiracy, right? So, you know, it looks like at least he's not alleged to have done any of those acts themselves, but instead alleged to have been behind the scenes, I guess, pulling strings or otherwise participating in the conspiracy. And if he gets convicted, particularly asking for a speedy trial, you're going to see the rest of them drop like flies, is my prediction.
Well, you know, the thing that cracks me up, and I'm trying to find this this tweet by Jenna Ellis, which I was kind of like, you can go to hell. You know, she was sitting here doing her little whining and complaining. I think she put up like a scripture or something, and she's like, "This is just grossly unfair. You know what they're doing to us is just not. It's just not right. You know." And now she's sitting here touting her defense fund has raised about $150,000 in all of this, and again. You know, they're sitting, and I love it how now, you know, all her Twitter feed, it's a whole lot of Jesus on her Twitter feed, and that's what you're gonna need. That's what you're gonna need, Michael. When you choose to stand with a thug, they gonna treat you like a thug, and you gonna end up like a thug.
Absolutely. I think Jenna Ellis used a Christian crowdfunding website. You know, she talked about how she didn't have the money to pay the legal fees. There are going to be a lot of them flipping, Roland. And last I heard, Donald Trump owes Rudy Giuliani $3 million in legal fees.
And he's stupid.
He's grossly stupid. Now, Donald Trump has agreed to appear at a fundraiser for Rudy so Rudy can pay his little legal fees and stay out of prison. But if Jenna Ellis or any of these co-conspirators think that the charges are unfair, I would encourage you to read the 98-page indictment, and you can start on page 20 where it starts laying out the 161 overt acts that Fani Willis has identified. Okay, so this is called justice. This is called karma. All right. So don't do the crime if you can't do the time. I don't want to hear any complaining because you all knew what you were doing. You just thought you could get away with it.
Yeah, this is the scripture that poor little Jenna posted, Matthew 5:4, Psalm 32:10 and 11. And I have to remind her, Chuck Colson found the Lord when he was in prison and came out and started a prison ministry. Maybe Jenna Ellis, you could be Chuck Colson 2.0, but he still went to prison. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. All right, y'all, hold tight 1 second. I got to go to a break. We'll be back. Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Don't forget, folks, you're watching YouTube. Hit the like button. Also, we want you to contribute to the success of our show. Your dollars make it possible for us to do what we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. The goal is very simple, to get 20,000 of our fans contributing on average $50 each. That's $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day. That will raise $1 million for us to do the work as we continue to fight the battle to get the advertising that is needed. Send your check and money orders to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is on RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Be sure to get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. Available bookstores nationwide, Barnes & Noble, IndieBound, Books A Million, Target. You can also get a copy on Amazon. Download your copy on audio copy on Audible. We'll be right back.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, Dave.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
On a Next to Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie. Summer is flying by and back to school is just around the corner and fall is here. That's right, a new season is upon us. On our next show, we talk about jumping into action and putting procrastination in the rearview mirror. That's on a Next, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie here on Black Star Network.
Hello, we're the Critter Fixers. I'm Dr. Bernard Hodges.
And I'm Dr. Terrence Ferguson.
And you're tuned in to
Roland Martin Unfiltered.
You know what? You can always count on the idiotic racists to do what they do. And say unbelievably dumb, stupid things. And one of them is the convicted felon, Dinesh D'Souza. This fool actually made this post that was just kind of dumb. I'm trying to find it to see if this fool still has it up. I responded to it. Where even a black Republican, Sonny Johnson, had to smack him down for the sheer stupidity of his comment when he was talking about mugshots and black people. Let me see if I can find this post because it really was dumb. It really was dumb. And what you're also seeing, I mean, you're seeing how these people sort of operate. You're seeing how they operate in terms of, you're seeing how they operate with just kind of just the ridiculous things that they say, and they're doing everything to defend this idiot, and who really that's what he is. That's exactly what he is. Let's see, where is, okay, so here it is. Go to my iPad. This fool goes, in the urban black community, a mugshot can be an iconic symbol, both of victimization and of greatness. It's a defiant up yours to the man. Think Tupac Shakur. Trump is now the ultimate gangster in our culture. Kelly.
Oh, okay. No, that's the first word that comes to mind with this. I'm baffled. I'm sorry. I had to gather my thoughts for a second. The fact that you think that Black culture is rooted in institutionalized racism and prison culture, just because there is gangster rap does not mean that that is inherently all Black people culture. Not to mention the fact that he's just blatantly wrong about what he said. But if you're going to try to rationalize it, let's start there. We forget that these mugshots that rappers had back in the era of Tupac Shakur and the like, those were not publicized by the hip hop artists. Those were more or less leaked. And, you know, you just made the best out of a bad situation. But I'm a little speechless right now. That was wild. That's wild.
Again, the thing that cracks me up, these people literally say some of the stupidest stuff, Matt. And again, they are so delusional. I'll give an example. Jonathan Turley, who I don't know who would even take this idiot's class at George Washington. This is, and he was supposed to be, I think he's went to the Alan Dershowitz School of Law since Trump was in the Oval Office. Listen to what this fool actually said, Matt. Oh, let me pull this up, because guys, I don't know what planet he's now on. Maybe he got abducted by Martians. Check this out.
He insists that he does believe that Georgia could have been flipped with a recount. And
hold on a second.
She portrayed that phone.
Here we go.
He insists that he does believe that Georgia could have been flipped with a recount. And the way that she portrayed that phone call to Raffensperger, I think, is really evidence of the bias and unfairness of aspects of this indictment. You know, it makes perfect sense when you're challenging an election to say, you know, I only need around 11,000 votes. So if you do a statewide review, that's not a lot in a state like Georgia. That's not criminal. That's making a case for a recount.
Okay, Matt, here's the problem. When he made the call, they had already done a recount.
Exactly.
So, sorry, Jonathan Turley, you look like a dumbass.
Yeah, you know, Roland, I'll be the odd person out here. This is actually what scared me about this case in the defense, is I actually thought this would be their defense. I suspect it will continue being their defense. And I know that I personally believe Donald Trump was trying to fix the election. There's no doubt of that in my mind. Don't misunderstand me. But I am concerned about how that plays with the jury, because I do think there is a reasonable argument that people are going to say, look, it was said in jest. It was said more conceptually, right? Like what I need is this many votes to get to where I need to go to win the election. And I know they'd already done a recount. But whether that is criminal to the extent of really, you know, trying to convince somebody to fix votes, I think is going to be a harder case than a lot of people are giving it credit for, if I'm completely honest. Now, do I think Turley is saying that in the way that is most favorable to Donald Trump? Of course, because they worship at the altar of Trump. Do I think that Trump was trying to fix the election? Absolutely. But from a purely legal perspective, I actually think it's a harder argument than maybe some other overt acts. But I wanted to actually address something from Dinesh and say, you know, what I think Dinesh D'Souza is showing is that, you know, Black people in this country are whipping posts where we're not even involved. Why he would have to go out of the way to say, oh, in the Black community, mugshots are all of these things, and make this straw man to not address the fact that Donald Trump is under indictment in 4 different jurisdictions and find a way to loop us in when we're not involved at all, speaks to a lot of times the way, they get snaked, right? And the idea that they can analogize this president to black people, making black people look like criminals, and then trying to extract from that some kind of social value and say he's now the ultimate gangster is horribly offensive, and I think is proof of how a lot of people still view us in this country, which we talk about all the time. But as it relates to that call, I think there's actually going to be a more difficult case there than some people see. And that's just my opinion on it.
See, the problem here, Michael, is that they already had taken all the different steps when he made the phone call. And so it's a little hard to say, no, I was looking for a recount when they already had a recount, when it had been certified. What he was trying to do, he literally was trying, right now, matter of fact, let me pull it up right here. Trump's co-defendant points the finger. Don't go to my iPad yet. Check this out. This is from Politico. 3 Trump co-defendants say they became false. Go to my iPad. Say they became false electors at Trump's direction. So they were way past the recount. It had been there had been a recount. It had been certified. Raffensperger, Kemp had all said free and fair elections. They were literally trying to overturn the results.
Absolutely. They were trying to overturn the results. You have fake electors, but also keep in mind there were 62 lawsuits filed, and for various states, not just for Georgia, but for various states. They lost 61 of the court cases. So any evidence that they had that Georgia was rigged, that they actually won it, they would have presented in court. Okay, so no, they were trying to overturn election results, and the fake electors. You have those as co-conspirators as well. That's very damaging because they signed those documents stating that they were the electors as well.
And here's what they're saying, quote, Mr. Steele, as a presidential elector, was also acting at the direction of the incumbent president of the United States. An attorney for Steele argued Thursday in a court filing seeking to transfer the case against him to federal court. The president's attorneys instructed Mr. Steele and the other contingent electors that they had to meet and cast their ballots on December 14, 2020. Here's the problem here, Michael. The attorneys were not government attorneys. They were his campaign attorneys. This was not the president of the United States making a decision regarding the federal government. This was the campaign. The reality is 2 separate things. This wasn't the White House counsel saying you're doing this on behalf of the United States. No, these were his campaign attorneys saying that. They got to get around that.
Yeah, and the Hatch Act makes a discernment. It makes it distinguishes between the two of those. This is why most likely Mark Meadows is going to lose in trying to get the case moved to federal court, saying he was operating within the capacity of White House chief of staff to the president. But you're operating based upon the Trump campaign. Not the chief of staff, okay? There's a distinction between those two duties. And even if you are operating based upon the campaign, is not within your scope of services or within your authority to try to overturn election results either. So these are flimsy excuses that they're using. But what's going to happen is Trump is drowning in debt trying to pay these legal fees, and he's not going to be able to pay the legal fees of all these other people he's promised. And some of these people, just like in the Mar-a-Lago case, witness number 4, who just got his own attorney and flipped and recanted statements he made to the investigators, the same thing is going to happen here as well. So this kind of reminds me of R. Kelly, when R. Kelly ran out of money. And then it was a different story as well. And R. Kelly's in prison right now. Yeah, player, your ass going to prison.
Just saying. All right, y'all, hold tight 1 second. I gotta talk about this story out of New Hampshire where a 79-year-old retired teacher just got all in the ass of Senator Tim Scott and was like, Why you keep sucking up to Trump? Ooh, I can't wait to talk about this. That's next on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Going to a barbershop in a 700 credit score neighborhood, black or white. They're talking about their ideas and they're talking about how they're going to move on those things. You go to a barbershop at a 500 credit score, equal brilliance, but bad culture. They're talking about other people. You go to a winner's barbershop, here's what I'm doing. You go to the barbershop of where people feel defeated, they talk about other people, either celebrities or people they admire, but also often, I don't like Joe. I don't like Roland Martin. Well, let me tell you something. I don't understand people. How could you not like anything here you see? You should just be like, this is amazing. It's cool. You may not even like how he does it or how I do it, but it's like, you know what? They're succeeding. They're killing it. All you should be is, that's fantastic. But if I don't like me, I'm not gonna like you. If I don't feel good about me, it's hard for me to feel good about you. If I don't respect me, don't expect me to respect you. If I don't love me, I don't have a clue how to love you. And here's the big one. If I don't have a purpose in my life, I'm gonna make your life a living hell.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Hello, I'm Paula J. Parker. Truly proud on the Proud Family.
I am Tommy Davidson. I play Oscar on Proud Family, Louder and Proud.
Hi, I'm Jo Marie Payton, voice of Sugar Mama on Disney's Louder and Prouder, Disney Plus. And I'm with Roland Martin on Unfiltered.
So what happens when you're a coward? I think South Carolina Senator Tim Scott knows this quite well. 3 days ago, he was on Fox News, and they were basically doing everything to get this dude to criticize the, I'm sorry, what did you call him, Kelly? The Mad Mussolini, what was it? I'm sorry. The what?
Mango Mussolini.
I'm sorry, the Mango Mussolini. Gotcha, okay, cool. So they were trying to get Senator Tim Scott to call out the Mango Mussolini, and just a coward. Watch.
Do you think that there will be fatigue among that evangelical vote for the former president when they watch all of these legal trials over the course of this year? Is that going to be something that makes some of them peel off?
I think the average voter is going to want to know, how does the candidate best represent the future for my children? How does the
I'm asking you, is the evangelical vote going to get tired of what the former president is going through?
I heard your question. My answer is that people will make a decision based on the future of their family, not what's going on in the legal entanglements of the former president. What I found throughout the entire state, 1% of all the questions I received has to do with the former president.
No doubt. I'm sure that's true, and we find that as well, but he's the front runner by a lot. Of course,
absolutely.
And I know that you had said in the past that the evangelical vote was very important to your path.
Well, I think all voters are, but certainly I think we're going to do very well with the evangelical voters over the next 4 or 5 months. We'll find out whether I'm right or not. I am very confident that when we're heading into December, we're going to be in striking zone.
So
I'm very confident that man is scared to death to utter a single negative word about Donald Trump because he is desperately trying to be Donald Trump's vice president. That's what I think he's doing. In fact, remember when Donald Trump got indicted, I mean, this was a line of questioning. And just listen to how Tim Scott answered this. Listen.
Start off with the latest indictment of your chief rival, Donald Trump. I know we've talked about the two-tiered system of justice. You see it in the past, but if we could look into Georgia specifically, right? We all heard that phone call with the former president, then president at the time, where he said, just find me the requisite number of votes that I would need. Doesn't that feel anti-American? Doesn't that feel like not what a president should do?
I'll just continue to say it as I see it, which is that we see the legal system being weaponized against political opponents. That is un-American and unacceptable. At the end of the day, we need a better system than that. And I frankly hope to be the President of the United States where we have an opportunity to restore confidence and integrity in all of our departments of justice in the country.
Yeah, but that phone call, you heard it, right?
Yes, but we've just drawn different conclusions.
You think it's fine? You would do that as president? You would look for the amount of votes? Quick question for you, if we could start off.
Like, he literally did not even want to answer the question about the phone call. Well, I saw this story today that I just loved, and I hope there's video. It hasn't been posted yet, but I'm sure looking for the video. And so Tim Scott, go to my iPad, Tim Scott is tense back and forth with New Hampshire voter over support for Trump. A 79-year-old retired school teacher jammed up Tim Scott at a campaign stop today as he was making his way through the Windmill restaurant. Customer David Coffey called him over to the booth where he was eating and said, "You don't stand up to Trump. How are you going to stand up to the president of Russia and China?" As Scott tried to talk around the question, Coffey pushed back, and Scott said, "Do you want to have a conversation or do you want a monologue? I'm happy to listen, but if you want to have a dialogue, I'll be speaking as well." Scott rejected Coffey's characterization, and he is unwilling to stand up to Trump. Quote, "The premise of the question is why don't you stand up to Trump? You're just wrong that I don't. I was one of the few people that actually stood up against those major issues, whether it was Charlottesville or other major challenges he had," would name them. "I'm the guy that stood up and talked about the disagreements that we had." Okay. Now, they say Scott was one of the 6 candidates on stage who raised their hand when asked if they would support Trump in the general election should he win the GOP nomination. Coffey later called Scott out for not condemning Trump's actions on January 6th. "The president on January 6th wanted to destroy our country. Do you agree with that or not?" Scott says, "I do not." He says, "I believe that the people who were responsible for threatening my life were the people who were outside the chambers forcing their way into the Capitol." Coffey, you're a leader. Your leader of this country did nothing to help you out for 2 hours. Later, Coffey did an interview. He said he's a politician, right? He avoids direct questions because he doesn't want to lose a lot of Republican voters by saying what Christie is saying and some of the others are saying. Here is the reality, Michael. Senator Tim Scott, when it comes to this, he's wimping out. He wants to be Trump's VP. That's what he's running for. Vivek out there with his little nonsense, actually, Nikki Haley has been highly critical of Trump. Obviously, Chris Christie. Obviously, you have DeSantis. But the bottom line is, this dude, he is playing for the number 2 spot.
Absolutely. And Tim Scott is scared of his own shadow. And Tim Scott, I want you to Google Harrison Floyd, this brother right here, because if you become Trump's vice president, God forbid, this could be you in the next 6, 8 years, whatever it is, okay? So Tim Scott does not want to call out Trump. Tim Scott, when he was hemmed up by the 79-year-old man, it was 187 minutes that Trump did absolutely nothing, okay? Yes, it was the people outside, but it was Benedict Donald who sent those people outside who were trying to get inside. He was the one who sent them there. And let everybody, I want everybody to understand this also. Tim Scott was also the one who tanked the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. And one of the most insulting things that he did was when he gave his speech announcing he's running for president. Part of the reason why he said he should become president is because he refunded the police. What he was talking about was when he went out and lied in September 2021 and said that they couldn't come to an agreement on the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act over defunding the police, okay? And then the Fraternal Order Police and the International Association of Police Chiefs put out a joint memo saying that in none of the drafts of the bill did it talk about defunding police and how they supported the bill. So Tim Scott is somebody that we definitely need to study and stop, okay? All scan folk are not kin folk. He's a good example of that.
Here's the thing, though. I watched the debate, Kelly, and Tim Scott even at one point talked about what we must do is stop the spending in D.C. We must return the money to the states. First of all, Kelly, he's from broke-ass South Carolina, okay? Broke-ass South Carolina. South Carolina gets more money from the federal government than they send to the federal government. So y'all can't even fund your damn selves, Tim. You need federal money. But, so check this out. He literally said that, and I'll give her credit, you know, but she finally showed some guts. This is what Nikki Haley actually had to say about the spending in Washington, D.C.
I don't care about polls. What I care about the fact is that no one is telling the American people the truth. The truth is that Biden didn't do this to us. Our Republicans did this to us, too. When they passed that $2.2 trillion COVID stimulus bill, they left us with 90 million people on Medicaid, 42 million people on food stamps. No one has told you how to fix it. I'll tell you how to fix it. They need to stop the spending. They need to stop the borrowing. They need to eliminate the earmarks that the Republicans brought back in. And they need to make sure they understand these are taxpayer dollars. It's not their dollars. And while they're all saying this, you have Ron DeSantis, you've got Tim Scott, you've got Mike Pence. They all voted to raise the debt. And Donald Trump added $8 trillion to our debt. And our kids are never going to forgive us for this. And so at the end of the day, you look at the 2024 budget, Republicans asked for $7.4 billion in earmarks. Democrats asked for $2.8 billion. So you tell me who are the big spenders. I think it's time for an accountant in the White House.
I did crack up laughing when I saw Tim Scott talk about that. I'm kind of like, dude, that's you. He's a coward. He's a coward, Kelly. He is not going to criticize Trump because I'm trying to tell you, Kelly, he wants, and I've talked to other black Republicans who have insisted to me, Tim Scott wants to be the VP.
And that's all well and dandy. I want to be a millionaire like tomorrow, and that's just not going to happen. It's simply not feasible unless I hit the lottery, and that's not going to happen right now either because I don't play the lottery. And I say all that to say, I don't care how much you suck up to Trump, how much you do all of these things, bend over backwards, compromise your morals, all of these things, he's not going to pick you, sir. You are a black man in a Republican Party. That's not going to happen. He's a racist. You're not going to get picked. He'll appreciate the money you raise him. He'll appreciate you sucking up to him. But that's about it. That's your limit. That is your glass ceiling, sir. And the fact that you don't see it, even though it is transparent as hell, is baffling to me because it's been there. And you're looking up at it. And it's like, because it's so transparent, maybe you don't see it. Maybe you're afraid to tap it a little bit, but this is as far as you go. This is as far as you go. You're not getting picked.
Well, the thing just goes to show in terms of how these folks think and how they operate. Matt, is again they don't have courage, and to me, again, they're so scared of this dude. You're not gonna beat somebody that you're scared of. You're simply not gonna do it, and that's exactly what you see here. And so this little idiot, I mean, he's just again he's flat out is operating as a coward. I'm trying to find a clip. Chris Christie was on with Neil Cavuto, and they were talking about, one of the other opponents. And the thing that was a trip to me was Cavuto asked Christie, if Vivek got the nomination, would you support him? The dude wouldn't even just say hell no. He wouldn't even say hell no. What he did was, that I can assure you that's never going to happen. No, how about just saying hell no? But the reason they can't do that, Matt, is because, again, they are scared to death of him. They're scared to death of him actually being the nominee and them being locked out. I said it almost 2 years ago next month on ABC. These people care about power. They have no morals, no values, no principles. They have no ethics. They have no patriotism. It's about power. That's why they all raise their hand. That's why they will not say with certainty, if this person gets a nomination, hell no, I'm not supporting them. Because what did Bill Barr do when he was on CNN? He laid out this whole long deal, all the stuff that Trump did, and if he did those things, that he should be convicted. But he then said, I'm not going to waste my vote. If he would not rule out still voting for Donald Trump. It's because they, Matt, get power. And they're going to vote with one another to maintain power, even if it's Donald Trump.
I don't disagree, and I'm going to opine on that, but I saw Michael wanted to jump in, so I'll yield to him before I answer in earnest if he wanted to say something.
No. You go and answer.
Okay. Well, then in that respect, I don't think you're wrong at all. And I'm here to say publicly that I was completely wrong, because I thought at this point the party of alleged morals and law and order at this point would have cut itself loose from Donald Trump and he would be a non-factor. I've said that many times on this show, well in advance of this election cycle, and I was flat wrong. And I think you're 100% right. I mean, the fact that you had, 6 out of the 8 people on the stage the other night raise their hand and say they would still support him if he was convicted is absurd, right? Because not only are we in new frontier country as it relates to somebody running for president who may have convictions or who's been accused of such crimes, but I mean, you have absolutely no credibility in my mind if you're not willing to say this is beyond the pale. Because please believe, Roland, if Tim Scott's black behind was indicted in one place, they would be castigating him and saying he absolutely could never be president again, right? Or could never be president. The reason they're not doing that with Donald Trump is because they're afraid because of how Trump has managed other people who have come against him in the past. And I don't understand why instead of everybody just shutting him out, they're all so afraid. It doesn't make any sense to me, particularly because I think he's the front runner for the Republican nominee right now, obviously. But I don't think that he's going to have the success in the general election. And I don't know why the Republicans are betting on him as their horse in the future. I think he's good at getting headlines, but I don't know that the American people overall are going to vote for him again, notwithstanding differences in voting totals between Republicans and Democrats and old people and young people and all that stuff. I don't think he gets elected again, but I was wrong before. He's going to be the nominee, most likely. So I don't know why they're afraid of him, but they clearly are afraid of him. And you cannot beat somebody you're not, willing to call out and run against head up.
Indeed. Hold tight 1 second. Go to the break. We're going to talk about a case out of Tulsa. We're going to come back to politics. In the debate, Fox News opened the debate talking about this hit song, Rich Men North of Richmond. And they gave the impression that this guy was talking about Biden and Democrats. Well, the singer got the video today, said, no, I was talking about them. Also, this weekend, events are happening in Washington, D.C. to commemorate the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. We'll show you what some of the alphas had to say at the MLK Memorial about these events. That lot more to break down right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. Brown versus the Board of Education. The history books call it the court decision that ended racial segregation in American schools. But a brand new book, Jim Crow's Pink Slip, uncovers a devastating unintended consequence of that 1954 Supreme Court decision.
We may, if we were lucky, have been the very last generation of Black students to have experienced these generations of Black teachers who have never been replaced.
Dr. Leslie Fenwick joins us to talk about her book and the actions following that landmark decision that dealt a virtual death blow to Black educators. That's next on The Black Table, right here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm Devon Franklin. It is always a pleasure to be in the house. You are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Stay right here.
The descendants of the Tulsa Race Massacre, they are not giving up in their pursuit for economic justice. National Civil Rights Attorney Mario Solomon Simmons and his legal team are appealing the Tulsa County District Court decision to deny the estate of a 1921 murder victim permission to reopen their case. One of the attorneys is Cordell Cephas. He joins me now from Tulsa to explain why Dr. Andrew Cheeston's family is fighting to preserve the legacy and property rights of their ancestor and his descendants. Okay, so explain to us exactly what's going on here. What are you actually appealing?
Well, one, thanks for having me on, Martin. Roland, I apologize. What we're appealing in this matter is the denial of the family of Dr. Jackson to reopen his estate to simply marshal the newly discovered assets that have been discovered in his estate. In Oklahoma law, anyone can open it. Essentially, anyone can open an estate. It could be a creditor that can open an estate. As we've seen in this case and in other cases, the bar has simply been raised higher for the descendants of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. As the Tulsa County Court denied the opportunity to this family to open the estate and manage the affairs of their loved one.
Okay, I'm still confused. Okay, they want to open the estate. What's new information? What's new assets, new value? What does that mean?
So we're looking at the name, the image, the likeness of Dr. Jackson, which is being exploited by individuals that are not related to him. His family,
like who?
Control. Particularly, we're looking at a number of institutions. There's a museum here in Tulsa, Greenwood Rising, which we believe are using pictures. But even beyond that, what we want to do, what the family wants to be able to do, is simply control his image and likeness the same way that any other family would be able to control the image and likeness of their deceased loved one.
Okay, so you mean for the purpose of comparison, the MLK estate controls the image and likeness of Dr. King? Absolutely. Okay.
We've not had an opportunity to do that. We've simply went to the court and we've said, hey, we want to be able to do this. The court initially, one court actually said yes. And then individuals who are not related to this estate, not related to the family, came in and filed an action and requested the court to reconsider that, or a motion to vacate what a prior court had done. And that court, in this particular instance, agreed and then closed the estate again. So we're at the point now where we have to appeal that. Under Oklahoma law, again, anyone can open an estate. However, not anyone can object to an estate being open. And our concern is, again, the court has raised the standard or issued a new standard, which allowed individuals who are not related to the descendants and don't have any interest in the property of these descendants to object to the appointment of Don Jackson, the great nephew of Dr. Jackson, the deceased Dr. Jackson, and has prevented them from opening the estate and controlling the assets, the property, the name, image, and likeness of their deceased loved one.
What's next? When do you go to court?
We've been to court on this a number of times. We've had a number of hearings in this matter. But at this point, what we're doing is we're appealing the Tulsa County District Court's opinion. We're appealing that to the Oklahoma Supreme Court. What we're requesting that the Oklahoma Supreme Court do is simply follow the law as written. The law as written would provide that anyone can open up this estate, anyone can marshal the assets, and it provides that not everyone, particularly the individuals in this action, the Hilly Foundation here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, it specifically said that they're not an interested party, and because they're not interested, they don't have a right to come into court and prevent the family members of Dr. Jackson from opening up this estate.
All right, then. Okay, well, let us know what happens next.
We'll keep you updated.
All right, appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Folks, we come back, we're going to talk about the March on Washington, 60th anniversary of the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. Events are happening in D.C. this weekend to commemorate that, and so we'll share some of the things that are happening. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, have you ever had that $1 million idea and wondered how you could make it a reality? On the next Get Wealthy, you're going to meet Liska Askalise, the inventress, someone who made her own idea a reality and now is showing others how they can do it too.
Positive, focusing in on the thing that you want to do, writing it down, and not speaking to naysayers or anybody about your product until you've taken some steps to at least execute.
Liska Askalise on the next Get Wealthy, right here, only on Black Star Network.
Bruce Smith, creator and executive producer of The Proud Family, Louder and Prouder, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, the black man who is leading the Disney district, appointed by Ron DeSantis, who used to run the Orlando Urban League, has resigned his position from the Florida Ethics Commission. Glenn Gilzine was actually chairman of the Ethics Committee, but then he got the appointment to run the district that oversees Disney. Well, you can't hold two positions at one time, so therefore he's resigned. Go to my iPad. This is who Glenn Gilzine is, the brother right there. The district position pays $400,000 a year. He used to run the Orlando Urban League, and one of the first things that he did as chair of the Disney district was get rid of DEI and also changed in terms of contracting that happened there. Michael, this guy's been called an Uncle Tom. He's been called a turncoat. He's been blasted by a lot of different people because he praised Disney's DEI efforts when he ran the Urban League. Now he's carrying the water of Ron DeSantis.
Yeah, you know, this is This incident right here is the first I've heard about this, and I don't know his whole background.
Well, we covered this last week, and the guy was spent 7 years covering the Orlando, says CEO of the Orlando Urban League, and again has praised diversity, equity, inclusion in the past, but then when he gets his $400,000 job, one of the first things he does is they stop any DEI efforts, and then they even even change contracting rules, saying that Disney, they were awarding contracts to minorities and giving preferences, and that's not how we're going to do business. So it's kind of like, everything you were doing at the Urban League, now you want to do the opposite.
Exactly. And people like this, I know when we dealt with the story of the sister who's the executive administrative assistant to the DA there in Florida, who Ron DeSantis removed, and they talked about the black judge who said all the right things to get the votes and then turned his back on the African American community. So this seems like the same thing. Okay, he said the right things when he was being paid by the Urban League and had the job. Now he's turning his back on the African American community and harming us by removing DEI. Even though diversity, equity, and inclusion is not all that most people want it to be, that does not mean you get rid of it. Improve it, make it better. So once again, this is another example of how elections have consequences, okay? And we need to check the backgrounds of these people as well, regardless of race or ethnicity. We need to hold them all to the same standard.
Well, it's hilarious looking at this. This was a statement they put out here, Kelly, where he talked about, again, we discussed this last week, they were awarding, go to my iPad, they were awarding contracts, on race-based, setting quotas and things along those lines. And now this guy's sitting here trying to, and here's what's so crazy here. They put out a statement. He goes, this so-called diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives were advanced during the tenure of the previous board, and they were illegal and simply un-American. And then he says, as the former head of the Central Florida Urban League, a civil rights organization, I can say definitively that our community thrives only when we work together despite our differences. Like, dude, stop it. You're a suck-up to Ron DeSantis. And frankly, you are a traitor to the efforts that you actually led beforehand, which was fighting for inclusion of black people and economic inclusion.
For sure. And I know one thing, the people at the Urban League in Central Florida are very much of the mindset that we don't know him no more. Because that is so against everything that the Urban League stands for. Now, I can see, I'm not going to say I understand per se, but we have plenty of examples of people who have grassroots experience, so to speak, in making sure that things are more progressive and making sure that people have equitable opportunity in this country. And then once they get to where they want to go, all of a sudden everything is, upside down, flipped inside out as far as the progress that was made. It does not surprise me that money all of a sudden makes you think that your black skin is irrelevant. And that seems to be the case here. And he will be sadly mistaken soon come, because DeSantis does not care. He does not care.
Well, you know what? Again, so he's resigned from the Ethics Commission, Matt. And look, as we talk about all the time, as Michael said, all skin folk ain't kinfolk.
Yeah, you're right. And as we talk about all this time on the show, it's about power. To Kelly's last point, this cat saw an opportunity to come up by now, decrying the same efforts that he championed at the Urban League. And, it's funny on one level that there are people who are easily bought and sold, but it's also scary because it shows you that you sometimes have sheets or wolves in sheep's clothing who are in organizations purportedly doing such important work. And in the moment they get out and it's advantageous for them to flip, they go in a different direction. Cats like this, you can't forget, right? Because we can't trust you now. We know that you're going to flip-flop, especially with somebody like DeSantis. We're not talking about another politician where, maybe some of their comments are on the line. This person is specifically and particularly attacking things like black history, the history of your own people in that state. So for you to have a job like this with the Urban League and then get out and now be decrying those same efforts. I mean, we can't ever trust anything you say going forward. And it's about power, and it's sad, but he's obviously corrupted by the opportunity to have it.
Indeed, indeed. All right, y'all, quick break. We come back. We're talking 60th anniversary of the March in Washington. Also, we still going to talk a little bit more politics. So Fox News started their debate talking about this hit song by this artist out of Virginia. And, the white conservatives have been embracing this, saying, see, he talked about them daggum liberals. And he's like, nah, I was talking about the Republicans on the stage. What did I show you what he had to say? You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
You go into a barbershop in a 700 credit score neighborhood, black or white, they're talking about their ideas and they're talking about how they're going to move on those things. You go to a barbershop at a 500 credit score, equal brilliance, but bad culture, they're talking about other people. You go to a winner's barbershop, here's what I'm doing. You go to the barbershop of where people feel defeated, they talk about other people, either celebrities or people they admire, but also often, I don't like Joe. I don't like Roland Martin. Well, let me tell you something. I don't understand people. How could you not like anything here you see? You should just be like, this is amazing. It's cool. You may not even like how he does it or how I do it, but it's like, you know what? They're succeeding. They're killing it. All you should be is, that's fantastic. But if I don't like me, I'm not gonna like you. If I don't feel good about me, it's hard for me to feel good about you. If I don't respect me, don't expect me to respect you. If I don't love me, I don't have a clue how to love you. And here's the big one. If I don't have a purpose in my life, I'm gonna make your life a living hell.
On the next A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie. Summer is flying by and back to school is just around the corner and fall is here. That's right, a new season is upon us. On our next show, we talk about jumping into action and putting procrastination in the rearview mirror. That's on a next A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie here on Black Star Network.
Me, Sherry Shepard, and you know what you're watching, Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered. So the other night, during the Republican debate, they opened it up by talking about this song by Oliver Anthony. It is called Rich Man North of Richmond. This song has exploded. It's gone to #1 on the Hot Billboard 100 charts. He's turned down an $8 million record deal. It was just, again, it's a hit out of nowhere. And so it's a country song. So all of it, country folk, they largely white, conservative, and they love Republicans. And so Fox News tried to portray it as, this guy, he's hitting the elites, those liberal elites in this country with this song. Well, Oliver today dropped a 10-minute video where he said, I was actually talking about the very people who was on that stage, those Republicans. I wonder if they're going to keep buying his song next week. Watch this.
Well, hey there. It's August 25th, 2023. A lot's changed since the last time I sat here and spoke to you. My friends and family have asked me how I'm doing. Everybody is wondering if I've lost my sanity yet, and I'm surprisingly calm and at peace. I don't even know what to say, but I feel thankful to be given this opportunity. The music side is exciting, and all the Billboard, iTunes charts, and all that crap. That's great, but the exciting part's been the conversations I've had with people and the things I've learned just in a couple weeks about the human spirit and about all sorts of other things, the music industry and how dirty everything is. Like, it's worse than you think.
You go to the movies to escape, and McCall can help audiences to escape.
People connect with that simple message of getting justice for the everyday person.
People love that character, and people love Denzel Washington. When he just starts to do his thing, magic starts happening. He spent his whole life helping these type of people. How do you just walk away from that?
McCall had gotten addicted to unnecessary violence. He couldn't stay away. He had one more job to do, right or wrong.
The mafia, they're like cancer.
But there are consequences.
They can take anything I want.
I still damage the odd fellow here and there. Use some various utensils. When necessary.
The Equalizer 3 in theaters Thursday.
All right, folks, so we're playing, bring it up to me. All right, folks, we're playing the spot from his YouTube channel, and so they got ads in here, so now we're back at it. Go ahead, play it.
So I don't know what the future looks like for me. I'm not really too concerned about the future. I'm living in the present. And I just have to have the discernment to make the right decisions from here on out, because I think about that guy who was sitting here a few weeks ago talking to you, and the most important thing to me is not leaving him behind.
So again, his life has changed in a huge way since this song dropped. And what has really been interesting again is how conservatives, I guess they think he's the new Jason Aldean. And they're going to want to use this to attack President Joe Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, and liberals. So it reminds me when Marjorie Taylor Greene tried to attack, what the hell song was it? It was I forgot one of the shows, and she was like, well, why don't y'all play Tennessee Whiskey? And then it was kind of like, you know, Stapleton supports Black Lives Matter, Chris Stapleton. Again, they just assume that if you're a country singer, that you're all for them. So listen to this guy right here.
I'm disappointed to see, like, it's aggravating seeing people on conservative news try to identify with me like I'm one of them. It's aggravating seeing certain musicians and politicians act like we're buddies and act like we're fighting the same struggle here, like that we're trying to present the same message. You know, I've had a lot of people reach out to me, and I've tried to be polite to everybody, and I've talked to hundreds of people the last 2 weeks. But it seems like certain people want to just ride the attention of this song to maybe make them their own selves relevant, and that's aggravating as hell. The other thing that I find aggravating is, well, you know, like, it was funny seeing my song in the, it was funny seeing it at the presidential debate, because it's like, I wrote that song about those people, you know? So for them to have to sit there and listen to that, that cracks me up. But it was funny kind of seeing the response to it. Like, that song has nothing to do with Joe Biden, you know? It's a lot bigger than Joe Biden. That song is written about the people on that stage, and a lot more too, not just them, but definitely them.
Matt, boy, they're gonna be mad as hell with him. I bet they sitting here trying to go to their phones, delete that shit right now. Let me delete this damn song. Shit, I thought he was one of ours.
Yeah. Yeah, they're gonna be bad because, you know, look, they try to paint country singers, white people as monolithic, the same way they try to paint us as monolithic. But in that instance, it's especially insidious because they're trying to use it to make their political point and don't even know that he wrote it about them. And not about Joe Biden, but about them and about people like that. I don't know the song. I can't really attest to the lyrics, but I think it's important that he came out and said that. I especially think that's important. I think that shows his character rather than, you know, soaking it up and taking the opportunity to just move forward. He thought it was important to say, no, that's not what I wrote it for. And I think it's aggravating that they're leveraging it the way that they are. But this is kind of hearkening back to what we talked about with Trump earlier and the appearance of things. And that's what you see, especially with conservatives these days. It's all about the appearance. It's all about how it appears and the appearance of strength and the appearance of unity, the appearance of patriotism or whatever else, even if that isn't the truth. And this is a good example of that exact principle.
Man, they're going to be so mad at him, Kelly. Oh, they're going to be mad at him. They're going to be like, you damn traitor. Now you're one of them Black Lives Matter damn activists.
You know, he's woke now. That's going to be the new headline. But wait till they find out that Black people invented country music. Then they'll just, roll over in their graves once they die.
What? What? That's, how dare you?
Hey. But no, it's interesting to me how, again, to Matt's point, how people have treated country music like it is a monolith, and it is the furthest thing from it. I mean, country music to me, as somebody who grew up in music and has musicians in her family and has been a musician herself, like there has been a huge array of country music from white people, from Black people, even some Asian people, Hispanic people. I mean, Ray Charles, my God, and that's just one example that I can think of off the top of my head. So for him to have to defend himself against this is very interesting to me, because this isn't the first time that this has happened. You mentioned Chris Stapleton. I mean, I remember growing up, the Dixie Chicks. There are now Black country music artists right now who are, on the rise. Mickey Guyton, incredible, so they need to stop trying to, frankly, pinhole country music, pinhole any type of music as if it's the national anthem for racism. It is not. It never has been, never will be, and they just need to get over it.
I just love that he said they had to stand there, Michael, and listen to my song, and I was talking about them.
Yeah, Roland, and I read the article NBC News just released dealing with Oliver Anthony's statements, and they described the song as a folksy lament topping a lament topping the charts about the frustration of a working class person who toils for low wages and sees his meager earnings eaten up by taxes. Well, last time I checked, the African-American woman makes 63 cents to 67 cents on the dollar that every white male makes. And it takes the average African-American woman 20 months to make the same amount that it takes the average white male to make 12 months. We know that African-American men are underpaid as well. We know there's an 8-to-1 racial wealth gap as well. Okay, it's not because white people work 8 times harder or 8 times smarter. So this is going to once again come back and haunt them. But this shows how Republicans automatically think, and we can say some Democrats as well, we talked about that here, automatically think working class means white people or white males. It does not. The working class is not specific to any race. You have Latinos, Asian Americans who are working class as well. So this is going to come back to bite them in the behind and kick them in the behind, which it should.
And that's what they do. All right, y'all. We come back. We're going to talk March on Washington, 60th anniversary, March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. Speaking about low wages, speaking about the poor. That conversation next. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. Brown versus the Board of Education. The history books call it the court decision that ended racial segregation in American schools. But a brand new book, Jim Crow's Pink Slip, uncovers a devastating unintended consequence of that 1954 Supreme Court decision.
We may, if we were lucky, have been the very last generation of Black students to have experienced these generations of Black teachers who have never been replaced.
Dr. Leslie Fenwick joins us to talk about her book and the actions following that landmark decision that dealt a virtual death blow to Black educators. That's next on the Black Table, right here on the Black Star Network.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, have you ever had that $1 million idea and wondered how you could make it a reality? On the next Get Wealthy, you're going to meet Liska Askalise, the inventress, someone who made her own idea a reality and now is showing others how they can do it too.
Positive, focusing in on the thing that you want to do, writing it down, and not speaking to naysayers or anybody about your product until you've taken some steps to at least execute.
Liska Askalise on the next Get Wealthy, right here, only on Black Star Network.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Farquhar, executive producer, Proud Family. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, this weekend in Washington, D.C., there'll be a number of events commemorating the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. Of course, attracted 250,000 people to the nation's capital. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., John Lewis, so many others were speaking that day. The focus, of course, was on economics for African Americans and exercising their power. Well, this weekend, again, the commemoration will take place earlier today, actually right before the show. At the MLK Memorial, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated held an event that featured several of the past presidents, including also Ambassador Andrew Young, Reverend Freddie Haynes III, Mark Morial, President and CEO of the National Urban League. Freddie Haynes, of course, is CEO Rainbow Push Coalition, and others. I had a chance to catch up with Alpha presidents Willis Lonzer, Everett Ward, Harry Johnson, who heads the Memorial Foundation, Herman Skip Mason. We also caught up with Freddie Haynes and Mark Morial, and this is what they had to say. All right, Harry, talk about today's program.
So proud to be here with the president of Alpha Phi Alpha and the brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha as they talk about the purpose and significance of the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington and Alpha Phi Alpha's role and Dr. King's role in the same. Brother President?
It is a pleasure to be here today. We look on 60 years as a breath of fresh air to renew our commitment to Brother King's vision and, more importantly, to the presence in the country as we try to lift everyone up as we remarkably look back on 60 years of this march. What a significant event.
This is an important day to commemorate the legacy of Dr. King and so many others who came to this nation and said that we must seek equal rights and justice for all. But even today is a reminder that that battle and that struggle is not over, and that as we memorialize this 60th anniversary, it is our responsibility to continue to fight for justice, continue to fight for equal opportunities, and never turn back the clock of injustice as it is being proposed today.
This gathering is important that we assemble here 60 years later to observe the 60th anniversary. I had the pleasure of being on the plane with Ambassador Andrew Young, who's the last man standing, and he recounted the pressure and the threats that they had even with the gathering of this memorial. So I'm honored to be here with our General President and past General Presidents, the CEO of the Memorial Foundation, and honored to have been the General President when we dedicated the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial. We still have a lot of work to do.
Well, first of all, I think it's important, that we are here at the monument that the Alphas built or led the construction of, all those years ago to Martin Luther King Jr., the only African-American on the mall. And, as many of us agree, the most important, the greatest citizen of this country who truly fought to make America, America. I'm here because I believe that, number one, there is an all-out war on democracy at the hands of neo-fascism. 60 years ago, fascism was in vogue. And our ancestors marched dreaming about democracy, authentic democracy, against the nightmare of fascism. And so we've come back because now, 60 years later, we find ourselves dealing with a new brand of fascism with many expressions, from what we see in the war on education, what Jacob Carruthers would call historicide, murdering our memory. There is also in this nation, sadly, what is going down in Alabama is a metaphor. A brother gets elected mayor, and even though he's elected mayor, they lock the doors on him. Alabama, practicing states' rights, decides that the Supreme Court ruling against their gerrymandered districting is something they want to overturn. And then, of course, what we see with our criminal justice system, as we have seen, Brian Stevenson is still right. To be rich and white and guilty is much better than to be poor, black, and innocent. And so we've come here with all of those issues because, as I believe it was Audre Lorde said, we are multi-issue people because there's so many issues that we are dealing with.
This matters because of the big six, two of them, Martin Luther King Jr. and Whitney Young Jr. were members of Alpha Phi Alpha. And this counts because Alpha's contribution to civil rights, Thurgood Marshall, and I could name many, is considerable and significant. So we're honoring the Big Six, the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington, a recommitment to the future, but we're especially lifting up Whitney Young and Martin Luther King, who were members of Alpha, and who brought Alpha leadership, Alpha intelligence, Alpha insistence on justice to that conversation 60 years ago.
And tied to where we are now, I mean, commemorating is one thing, but this really should be an agenda-based focus, if you will, that's present day.
And it is. We are calling it a continuation. So, Roland, you know as well as anyone, and you've reported on this and you've covered this, that the attacks on our progress, voting rights, our history, diversity, equity, and inclusion, access to college, the continuing racial wealth gap and the racial income gap are big challenges, and now our progress is under assault. So this is a time for a continuation and a call to action. And that call to action, for me, is three things. One, we must defend and fix American democracy. Number two, we must demand diversity, equity, and inclusion in all aspects of American life, from campuses to colleges to boardrooms. And thirdly, we must defeat poverty. Too many of our folks, too many Americans, too many black Americans, too many Americans of all races, but especially black Americans, live in poverty every day. Too many children. We must defeat poverty. That call to action animates the energy around the continuation of this commitment connected with this march.
Thing that I think is important here, Michael, and that is I got no problem with commemorating events, but I believe that there has to be other things around it. So, for instance, every year people gather in Selma to commemorate Bloody Sunday, yet people come there. Actually, they don't even spend money in Selma. Most of them stay in Montgomery. And, you know, I've said that if you go back next year, there should be a call, there should be an economic summit there. Because economically, Selma looks like it did when Bloody Sunday took place. When I think about people when they go to Memphis to commemorate Dr. King's assassination, the focus is not on economics. It's, again, it's just looking back. And, you know, the thing is, if we have the photos show it today, a number of different civil rights organizations, about 12 of them, met with the Department of Justice. They also had a meeting at the White House. And so, you know, those things are important. But I think what is critically important is for the people to be given an agenda. It's great to come there for a day of speeches, but the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom had an agenda and a purpose attached to it.
I'm going to discuss this Sunday on the African History Network show, because this is so important. I hear a lot of people talking about commemorating and rededication, things like this. That's important, but you have to understand the history that caused the need for the March on Washington. They didn't have a march because they were bored, okay? And this was a continuous fight by African Americans. And, you know, A. Philip Randolph and Brother John Lewis, 2 members of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. So you got 2 members of Alpha Phi Alpha who were Big Six.
Yeah, of course, you want to slide that in. Go ahead.
And you got, well, hold on. I just want to make sure, we want to make sure this is historically accurate.
No, it is historically accurate, but it was led, but the person that remembers the Alphas. Go ahead.
Remember, A. Philip Randolph is trying to do that for decades. Okay, keep that in mind.
You said tried.
Executive.
You said tried.
Yeah, well, he called it off. Remember, 1941. He was going to have
your point, Michael. You ain't gonna win this one. You ain't gonna win it. So just
yes, I will. Yeah, because he forced. That's how you got Executive Order 8802. He forced the hand of President Roosevelt. He threatened to put 100,000 African Americans marching on Washington.
1963. Michael, keep going. Keep going.
Okay.
You ain't gonna win this one, Michael.
All right. Okay.
You ain't gonna win
but what happens is, the biggest thing that people probably remember from August 28, 1963, is Dr. King delivering the speech, "I Have a Dream." The problem is that wasn't the name of the speech. It wasn't called "I Have a Dream" till years later. The original name of the speech was "Normalcy Never Again," and then it was called
"Normalcy No More."
Normalcy No More. Normalcy No More. Then a cancel check, because Dr. King and others, they were challenging the John F. Kennedy administration to hold them accountable to what he said, a promissory note given 100 years earlier. They're talking about 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation. And if you actually read the speech, you can probably go to archives.gov or Library of Congress or the King Center. You read the speech, he calls out police brutality, he calls out segregation, poverty, racism, discrimination. It's not until Mahalia Jackson screams out, "Tell them about the dream, Martin," that he shifts to start talking about the beloved community and the dream. The speech was about dismantling white supremacy and racism. This is what he's talking about in the speech. And lastly, if people just read the Clarence B. Jones, who was one of Dr. King's speechwriters, who helped write that speech. He wrote an article, op-ed for the Washington Post. It's called "On Martin Luther King Day, Remembering the First Draft of I Have a Dream." And he talks about how in the drafts of the speech, the phrase "I have a dream" didn't exist. And even Y.T. Walker, who was one of Dr. King's lieutenants, one of his aides, he told Dr. King, "Don't talk about that tired dream stuff in this speech." So we have to get the history correct here. They keep trying to distract us with the dream. They do the same thing with the mountaintop speech. They focus on the last 2 minutes. The speech was about 43 minutes.
But first of all, again, my focus here, Kelly, is not the speech. The focus has to be on what was the agenda. And the agenda, all the speakers, and what the focus was to, again, deal with economics. And what I'm saying is, when I attend a lot of these commemorations, we cover them a lot, but frankly, I haven't for a number of them, because for me, what is the agenda Monday? See, again, first of all, the actual anniversary is Monday, but the events this weekend are fine. The gathering is fine, but what are we asking our people to do on Monday? That, to me, it's what's most important.
It is most important. With anything, you need to have a call to action. And the call to action every year when it comes to the March on Washington, in my opinion, and I don't mean to belittle it whatsoever, but in the grand scheme of things, outside of the day itself, it just feels like the call to action is to come back next year. And that's just insufficient. Like you said, there needs to be an agenda, but not only what the original agenda was. Like you said, the initial title or name of the march was "For Freedom and Jobs," or "For Jobs and for Freedom." And especially in the Black community, which is what the focus of this march was at the time, we need to expand that within those two titles. We need to expand that to include the LGBT community. We need to expand that to truly include Black women. We need to expand that to include all Black people, because at this juncture in time, all of it matters.
Well, actually, but the original march was for black people, and it actually included black gay people because one of the co-organizers was Byron Rushton.
And I understand that. That's my point. But what I'm saying is that has been overlooked, and we need to reintroduce that into the agenda for this year and the years to come.
What has been overlooked? The fight for black people?
No, the fact that that black women were involved, that queer people were involved. We don't talk about that enough. In this conversation, yes, we do, but in the grand conversation of things, this is still a very little.
The point about first of all, the point about the inclusion of women, they were actually not included. Women were on that particular day. Daisy Bates spoke. There was a pre-program. And the reason she spoke is because Merle Evers was actually elsewhere. But on the actual number of speakers for the official program, they were all men. And so one, that's case. A. Philip Randolph and Bob Rushton were the co-chairs of it. The thing for me is, again, I don't mind there being events commemorating. And there are going to be a plethora of speakers who are going to be men, women, young folks, gay folks, single folks, married folks. It's going to be a plethora of people. What I still believe is, what I'm still looking for, and I haven't seen it, that is of the organizers of this, okay, what are we asking people collectively to mobilize around come Monday? See, to me, I think the mistake with a lot of these events is that they're just a flashback. They're a look back. It's a reason to gather. I'm always saying, okay, so like when somebody call a meeting, my first thing is, why are we meeting? Like, why are we here? And that to me is what I struggle with for a lot of these commemorations. I'm not talking about just, I'm trying to expand this, not just this, but I mean, I can bring up a whole bunch and I get the phone calls and they're like, hey, Roland, can you guys live stream? Can you cover it? And I'm going, okay, what are we doing? What's the purpose? What's actually behind this?
The activity with
for me here, Matt, is like, are there particular bills we're asking our people to push them on Monday? What are we asking Congress to do? What are we asking state? And look, all of these folks, like first, I would love to ask them. I'm going to send a text in a second. So they met with the Department of Justice. I would love to know, did the 12 civil rights organizations request a meeting with Republican House leadership? And what did they say? So for me, and again, so I would love that, because if the Democrats said we'll meet and the Republicans didn't, why not? That's what I'm arguing, that too often with these commemorations, they are events for us to gather. But I just think we got to be pushing our people to what's next? What's the agenda? What's next? What's next? What's next? I appreciate flashbacks. I appreciate people who are going to recount what Dr. King said and what it meant. I appreciate that two of his 3 children, we know Dexter not going to be there. So MLK III and Bernice are going to be there. But I'm like, okay, why are we mobilizing all the people together to do what?
Well, first, I'll say my youngest son is the namesake of Bayard Rustin. So I'm glad you brought up Rustin's name, because his is just as indispensable. But beyond all that, you know what else we have to stop doing, Roland? We have to stop allowing people to join us at commemorations who the rest of the time stand in the way of the progress of what the march and other such events are for. This is what I hate about MLK Day and all of the other events that we have, is because the same people who vote against our ability to vote go and then lionize Dr. King, despite working intently against exactly what he fought for. So commemorations are pointless if, not only to your point, we're not going to have a campaign, because if you look historically, that's what was engaged in. That's what Reverend Barber is doing these days. That's what people are doing, is campaigns, not just point in time events, but beyond that, we cannot allow people to have a seat at the table who actively work against our interests. And the reality of that is that's exactly what we see with Congress. Every time something's not passed that helps the people, we shouldn't allow that congressperson to be at the next commemoration. But too often we, I think that proximity to power is going to make us have progress that we demonstrably don't have. And I'm not the one making policy, but to me, I don't know why we keep inviting people to the table who are not sharing the meal with us. So when it comes to commemorations, not only do we need campaigns, but we need greater accountability. Because if you're going to be at the table with us, then it's incumbent on you to make sure that going forward, this agenda actually materializes into better lives for people.
I'll give an example, Kelly. Who the hell turned MLK Day into a day of service? MLK Day should be a day of protest. MLK wasn't sitting here saying, hey, go contribute to the food bank and go serve some meals. No! The man was fighting, advocating for change. MLK Day should be a day where there are massive protests around shit you care about on that day.
Right.
No, you're absolutely right. It is unfortunate that the whole premise of MLK Day has frankly been bastardized and diluted over the years, because the fact that there was a holiday at all dedicated to MLK was a form of protest, was a form of resistance. And because it needed to be palatable in order to be accepted, we have diluted the gravamen of what this holiday means and what even March on Washington means. Because note how we don't say March on Washington for jobs and freedom. We just say the March on Washington. And we don't talk about the other speakers of that day. We only talk about the I Have a Dream speech. All of this is designed to make these events, these momentous, incredible events, more palatable for those who do not, frankly, care about the Black struggle, but want to align themselves with the good so that they are not ostracized themselves. And that is unfortunate.
And look, I just, again, for me here, Michael, tomorrow's commemoration should be followed up with calling on every follower of every organizational leader that speaks tomorrow to blow the phone lines of Congress up, demanding a living wage, $15 an hour. Again, it was called the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. Tomorrow should be saying, come Monday, we are going to have our folks hit every House Republican, every Republican state legislature when it comes to fighting against these voter suppression bills. And Monday should be a renewed call for President Joe Biden to publicly demand for Congress to take up the George Floyd Justice Act this year as well. Why? Again, I'm mentioning three very specific themes that were in that particular speech that MLK gave. I just don't want to see folks tomorrow gathering just to gather in the heat.
Yeah, so Roland, this is an example why this show is so important, because I've seen coverage in mainstream media of the 60th commemoration, and they didn't go in depth like this. So
hell no, because they full of shit.
Number one. Well, I'm talking about even when they have civil rights leaders, Black civil rights leaders. I'm not going to call them.
What? No, they're full of shit. I'm telling mainstream white media loves performative Negro events.
Right.
And they go there so let me tell you how this goes. They go, okay, so we want to get a couple questions. So so-and-so, how does it feel to be here in the same place Dr. King gave his speech in 1963?
Exactly.
And then they go, is his dream still alive? And then if you go, have you read the speech?
Right.
Well, no, I'm just asking questions. I just want to get, about 30 seconds, if you could just sort of speak about, then it's like, were you there? Like, no, I was born in 1968. It was like, speech was in 1963. I mean, that's literally what they do. And so it is not designed for any nuance, and they damn sure don't bring it present day.
Exactly. So a few things here. Number one, yes, there has to be marching orders. The conditions have to be connected to the policy and the bills and what you're demanding of the people. Yes, an agenda has to be presented that is tied to also what they were demanding in 1963 as well. Okay, but something that's extremely important is the history surrounding 1963 and why they had to have that march, okay, has to be dealt with as well. And the real history of Dr. King, has to be taught when we on Dr. King Day and when we have these commemorations. So part of Dr. King Day should be protests for policies that you want. But the other part of Dr. King Day should be studying Dr. King, because I'm telling you, most Americans, regardless of race, don't understand how revolutionary Dr. King was, haven't read any of his 5 books. And Roland, you did an excellent job when you had Professor Charles E. Cobb Jr. on your show, News One Now with Roland Martin, where he talked about his book, This Nonviolent Stuff to Get You Killed, How Guns Made the Civil Rights Movement Possible. Because Dr. King owned guns until Bayard Rustin convinced him to get rid of his guns, okay? So when we start understanding the armed resistance that was involved in the modern day civil rights movement, as you talked about, and then you interviewed Professor Charles E. Cobb Jr. for 2 hours on your nationally syndicated radio show as well, after you had him on your show, on your TV show. When we start digging into this history, we understand how much we have been lied to about these people and about this movement, and then we'll start seeing some real results coming from it.
Final comment, Michael. Excuse me, Matt.
I just think that we can't keep inviting people who are working against our interests to come to these commemorations so they can get an attaboy from the media and people who watch it.
All right, folks, that is it for us. So let me just say this here. I will not be at the event tomorrow. I'm actually going to pop. I'm not going to happen. And again, to the folks who are going to be there, not a problem. Enjoy the event. I'm sure it'll be on C-SPAN. I'm sure people will be covering it. And it's just to understand one of the reasons why, because for me, what I often say, and I say this all the time, the biggest thing for me is I want to know, what are we doing Monday? A lot of times when people invite me to cover these events, I'll tell them, hey, I'm skipping that event, but invite me to the 6-month follow-up meeting. And that, to me, is what's most important. What is going to be the follow-up meeting? And so I already planned, this week, Dave Chappelle has been in, he's been in New York City. He's had 4 shows at Madison Square Garden, Tuesday, Wednesday. His birthday was Thursday. He has a show tonight. And he has another show tomorrow. So I'll be at the Chappelle show tomorrow night celebrating with Dave. And you know what? So I was going to sit and go there late. Then I was following Spike Lee on social media. And so I'm going to be giving y'all coverage of another really important event tomorrow happening in Fort Washington, Fort Greene Park. So I'll be in New York. Go to my pull up on my iPad. I'll be there. Spike does this annual event every single year. It's called the Brooklyn MJ Prince Party. So I'm going to be there. Drop the lower third. Yeah, I'm going to be there, y'all. So he's going to be live streaming this event on YouTube from 12 to 7. And so what the hell, I'm going to pop in and check him out. And then, of course, I head. So Sunday, Invest Fest is happening in Atlanta. Isaac Hayes III. Of fan base is speaking. Robert Smith, who is, of course, richest African-American in the country, Alpha, is speaking as well. Michael, just in case you need that little detail. And so I'm going to pop through Invest Fest, and then Chris Tucker has his golf tournament on Monday. Savoy has theirs on Tuesday, and so I'll be broadcasting from Atlanta those 2 days. And so y'all look at our social media. I'll have some wonderful content for us to be able to show on the show on Monday and Tuesday as well. Thank you to Matt. I'm sorry. I'm trying. Yes, to Kelly Mango Mussolini, but then and to Michael, always trying to plug Sigmas as well. Thanks a bunch as well. All right, folks, that's it. I appreciate all of y'all watching the show. Don't forget to support us in what we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. Your dollars are critically important for what we do, folks, to keep us in business. Trust me, it is not easy. The battles I have with these folks, these advertising agencies who keep screwing us. Next month, early next month, I'm going to give you the 3-month, we'll give you the update report on our meetings with various ad agencies, Publicis, OMD, Group M, as well as individual clients. I told y'all I'm going to be doing that because it's all about, again, letting people know exactly where we stand, who supports Black-owned media, and who does lip service. Let me shout out Michael Gordon, Violet Hadon, Frank Williams, Nina Carter, Sean Nash, Gail Wiley, Donald Rush, Sherry, Michelle Carton Gales, Jeanette Hawes, Ruffin Terry, Nate Roy, Saron Lawrence, Robert Jones, Albert Daniels Jr., Shafar Flowers, Albert Gray, Robert Brown, Siobhan Loney, Charlie Stokes, Stacy Robinson, Tamar McBride, Terry and Ray, Kim Yada, Ratliff, Kay Perry, John Perrin, Carolyn Jones, Notique, Michael Gordon, Verdell Lee, Deborah Tatum, Janaea Stanley, Kiana, and Marsha Porter, all members of our Bring the Funk fan club. They gave money via Cash App, and I thank all of y'all for doing so. Check your money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App, $ RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And of course, be sure to get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds, available at bookstores nationwide. And of course, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, IndieBound Bookshop, Ben Bella Books, Chapters, Books A Million, Target. Download the audio version on Audible. And so please, and remember, all proceeds of the book go right back to the show as well. That's it. We always end the show on Friday showing you all of our fan club members for the donations. Thank all of you for the work that you do. You make this show possible, and I appreciate every single dollar. Next week, I'll also give you an update on the Ro-Ro-Mobile. I have not forgotten. It's been 13 months since it was totaled, and so I'm going to give you all an update next week. All right, folks, y'all have a great weekend. Holla!
Bye.